All right, but wake me up, okay? What's up?
Wake me up. Sorry, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So maybe let's lay some differential groundwork here. Can we agree to adding an access to this, an access, AXIS, right? Access to this.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about these things in the form of harm. Can we agree about
Yeah,
that? That
you could talk about harm if you want to, sure.
okay. Can can we, because this, the way that I engage with this as a trans woman is, and I'm very hopeless, black pilled, dimmer pilled, whatever you want to call it right now, right? Is a valuation of harm. This is part of my faith, spirituality. It's also part of being an altruist like I am. Do I respect somebody saying that their pronouns are attack helicopter, right? No, I'm just going to be like, yeah, that's cool. You identify as an attack helicopter. I identify as a surface air missile system. One of us wins that argument. I don't really care anymore. I don't, because I guess I'm tired, right? I'm tired and frustrated of having to defend my identity literally every single day of my life. So in this case, I'm going to make a personal valuation of whether this person is doing any harm or not. And if they just insist, if they're insistent on I am gamer gender, I am whatever, I'm gonna be like, you know what, fine, fine, cool. I don't care. I don't care anymore, right? Because I mean, we can attempt to add the intent access to this and see is the intent to mock and ridicule. TERFs do this all the time, right? They say, well, if gender is a social construct and you're trying to get rid of gender, then trans people shouldn't exist, right? Why be trans? Why go through HRT? Why go through surgery and stuff? Because if gender's not real, then why do X, Y, and Z? And I just don't engage with those arguments anymore because I know what the intent is there. The intent is to mock and ridicule and to attack and to invalidate, right? So it's just, those things are not, I don't think that they're arguments worth entertaining on their face anymore. I think that they come from positions of dishonest disingenuousness and bad faith from word go. So when we're talking about this, the issues I have with how ICO framed it is that we seem to be missing trying to ascertain intent and trying to place some sort of valuation of harm being done, right? Transracialism, for example. I think transracialism's bad. I'm sorry, fucking cancel me, right? The trans woman is saying that she thinks transracialism is bad. The reason is because to me it feels like an attempt again to like mock and deride and invalidate the experiences that trans people are going through. And I don't think that you can just choose like I'm indigenous. I can't just choose to be black. And yes, these things are not consistent. They're not morally consistent. They're probably not even logically consistent, but I don't care anymore, right? I think one thing is attempting to do harm and to invalidate, and therefore I don't place the same level of respect and validity on it as the other thing, which is people just trying to live their lives.
So I'm letting you know that not caring about the logical consistency of the argument leaves you up to kind of a counterattack. If I made
I
the
understand.
yeah,
I understand.
so if that's the case, then there's not really a conversation that can be had. If you don't care about the logic,
Well,
then nobody can.
fine. What's the God, I know I'm opening myself up to a whole more ration of bullshit over the next few days. What is the counter argument here really?
Counter argument to your claim. The counter argument is that like, what if I'm a TERF and I just say like women are making fun of or trans women are making fun of cis women?
I mean, they do that all the fucking time.
Yeah, but like you're making the argument that like transracial people are making fun of like this would be cis
Okay,
race people.
what is the desired outcome here? What is I'm,
The
I'm
des-
curious what
the desired outcome, honestly, is to just like be logically consistent.
yeah,
Our
well,
positions on
I mean, we're humans. Like in some
yeah,
things logical consistency is not, it's not possible, right?
like
I
what?
I I draw my lines, for example, at immediate physical harm, right? It's part of my faith, right? The law that I live by, and it harm none, do as you will, right? So like in terms of like interference, right? The only time I believe in any interference whatsoever is if somebody's in immediate harm. After, but up until that line, if you're not doing harm to another human being, I don't care. I don't care what you do. I mean, this is just like It's like
Wait,
the concept of the victimless crime, for
where's
example.
the immediate harm of me identifying as transracial?
It's not immediate. It could be
So then it breaks your
long-term harm.
rule. So your rule is do as ye as long as it doesn't harm. I didn't remember exactly how you said it, and you said
And it harm
immediate.
none, do as you will.
Yeah, and it harm none, do as ye will, and it doesn't immediately harm anybody, so I can be
No, but it can in
transracial.
the long term.
Okay, but you said immediate harm. What if I made the argument that being trans, like a trans woman or a trans man, can have long-term harm if I'm a TERF? Like you need to
I mean, they do.
logically, right? I know TERFs do. What I'm saying is like if I was one, you need to be able to logically defeat my argument while also sustaining your position over transracialism.
At this point, like maybe we just don't know how to, right? Because like
Well,
my
so
framework for how I engage with this seems to be literally the only one on the entirety of Twitch. Um, and like, do I think somebody pulling the person that did the Korean gender thing,
yeah,
or the lady that did the trans black or whatever she did,
yeah,
do I think that those people are causing harm? Yes. Do I think it's immediate harm? I don't know. We would have to look at the
sure,
actual impact of what they're doing, right?
sure,
This is why I'm so tired of people demanding like binary yes no answers to questions that
sure,
do actually have a lot of granularity and nuance to them, right? Like
yeah.
I don't understand what the fucking outcome, like what the desired outcome is here outside of what you said, which is, to remain logically consistent and defeat these
Wait,
arguments. For
okay.
what?
So,
So what do you go
So
ahead?
wait, to have consistent arguments and to defeat other people's arguments is necessary for us to be able to one understand that we're living a logically coherent life, so maybe we can get some sleep, and two, so that way we can actually. I mean, I unironically would lose sleep if I woke up tomorrow and realized that, like, well, I guess not woke up tomorrow. If I went to bed, let's say tonight, and I realized
Mm,
that my entire framework was racist every single day. If I was being racist because my framework was logically inconsistent and was leading to racism, yeah, that shit would lose me some sleep for sure. Yeah,
probably fuck with me too.
yeah, and so that's all I'm arguing for is that we remain logically consistent, so we don't
But
bolster people's argument about being turfs, bolster people's arguments about being racist or what have you. That's all I'm advocating for. As well as it's not just like for yourself; it's also so that way you can defeat other people's arguments. That way, other people are less likely to take up those arguments. Right? There's going to be less
right,
people that want to take up an argument that just everybody laughs at because it's disproven nearly instantaneously. So
right.
that's
But
why we
these
should do it.
okay. I mean, I don't care about people using neopronouns. I'm gonna validate them regardless. I have no more energy left to fight that fight. I
Okay,
don't.
so yeah, nobody's.
Like
Yeah, sorry. Just to be clear, I don't think there's anybody that would shit on you for validating neopronouns. The thing.
seems like there would be, but okay. Maybe I'm
So
just
yeah,
misinterpreting
sorry,
things.
like actually upstanding actors. There's probably gonna be some dumb fucks on the internet, like how there is dumb fucks on the internet,
Yeah,
right?
true. It's
But
the internet. Yeah,
yeah,
gotcha.
but what I'm referencing is like if somebody identifies as a turtle, nobody would ever like go out of their way and be like, hey, if you respect them and then you identify them as a turtle and be like, hey, that's pretty cool. Nobody would go, oh, you're a piece of shit for being nice to somebody. Nobody would ever do that. The primary thing that like the argument is pushing back on is that it's the same as being like a trans woman, right? That's the argument that's
Okay,
being
it
pushed
isn't,
back.
but yeah,
Yeah,
we know
or
that.
even that it's of similar respect level. Like we shouldn't respect you identifying as, let's say, a trans bunny, whatever we consider that. And obviously, I'm not trying to say, I'll preface it what I already did with Aiko, is like I'm not trying to say that they actually believe that they're a bunny, but that they resonate with the characteristics of a bunny already is a separation from like what it means to be a trans woman. If you're a trans woman, you're
Mm,
a woman. But if you're a trans
yeah,
bunny, you're not a bunny. You're somebody that identifies with the characteristics of a bunny. So already on the face of it, they're different things. But when we argue that these things are the same thing, it's just ridiculous.
well, okay. I mean, then you and I agree, right? I'm
Okay,
sure I'm gonna get fucking canceled and yelled at by other people that. Anyway, then you and I agree on that. We can differentiate the lived experiences of people that identify as other kin and people that choose to identify with or at least adjacent to, features and concepts, right? This is actually a thing that exists in indigenous culture, right? Identifying, which is why I hate when fucking white people do it, but people that I identify with spirit guides and spirit animals and things like that, right? And take on the concept of that, like totemic type stuff, right? Where you take on the totem of what wolf represents within the confines of the spirituality of the Lakota Sioux, for example, which wolf is wise and warfare and hunt and the hunt and all and tracking and all that other kind of stuff, right? So like there's a difference between other kin and like totemic understandings of spirituality and identifying with characteristics and ideologies proposed by animal spirits and indigenous culture, but no one really cares about that, obviously. Very obviously, because no one wants to talk about it on this platform. But fine, we can agree that there obviously is a differentiation here between somebody who's bun self and turtle self and gamer gender and gamer self and all this other nonsense. And yes, I said nonsense on purpose. I don't fucking care anymore. And people that like me that are just trying to live our best lives. And
Cool.
fine, I agree with you on that one. I'll fucking what
Okay,
is it? What are we saying now? Bite the bullet, take the L. Which one is it now? I don't fucking remember.
it's not taken. It's no. Okay. Like memers
I'm
online
tired.
care
I'm
about
sorry.
that.
I'm
Sure.
very,
Yeah. No,
very, very
memers
tired.
online can care about that. I don't give a fuck. Okay. As
Okay,
long
cool.
as we agree, it's cool. It doesn't fucking matter. If we agree, that's fine. I don't really care.
Yeah, I agree that these things are not similar. Where I draw the distinction, as I have remained consistent for the years I have been on this platform, I draw the distinction at harm. And if I need to change from immediate to, just harm in general, then, that's something that I need to work on
Well,
as I move forward.
I wouldn't draw it necessarily just at harm because we
We
can
could draw an
harm.
intent too. I mean, we could add extra access to
Sure,
this, right?
but
Yeah.
the only issue is like you could argue that denying people being transracial causes harm, right?
Could we?
Yeah, I think you could. That
You think
person
so?
yeah,
Okay.
that person that identified as Korean, definitely me saying that they're not Korean 100% causes them harm. Like I'm sure of it. Like they go to quite a
Okay.
length to try and convince other people. Like I am almost certain that if I walked up to them and said you're not really Korean, that like that would cause them harm, certainly.
Okay.
Okay, and so like and we can cite other transracial people as well if we want to, but
Sure. Sure.
like I think that harm alone is not like a good access for like doing things because you could also argue that like I don't know, uh, calling out a pedophile causes harm, or calling out a person that physically assaults people can cause harm to them, like
Uh,
or what have you,
Okay.
because maybe there's a chance that they might not do it for the rest of their life, and maybe it's just added harm onto the world and shit. It's like fuck that shit. All right.
Okay. Do we bring in a harm valuation into this conversation then and say like there's a difference between the harm the pedophile caused and the harm calling them out on it could cause? Like
I mean, we could legitimately call that into question if we wanted to. I'm sure we would both agree on the
yeah,
outcomes of that.
the
Sure.
outcomes are entirely different and the intents are entirely different as
Yeah,
well. So
so
like
my point though is harm is not like a good evaluation for like everything. Meaning
I
that
would
like
I
we
would argue
need
it's not a good solo valuation,
okay.
but it should
Sure.
always be part of the part of the equation. Yes?
I it depends on how we categorize harm. And sometimes I just wouldn't really care. It would care
Okay.
more as being consistent with our positions and making it depends. Like if you count harm as negative utility, then yeah. I don't count those as one and the same. Like for instance, do you think that there's any harm in like telling a white lie? I mean that's a what's an oxymoron? Do you think there's
Oh,
any harm in me, for instance, let's say I wanted to lie to you right now, and I said my favorite
mm,
color is purple, but really it's like black. Do you think there's
there's
any
no
harm
harm
in
done.
that?
What's so harm there? No, none.
Right. And so, but do you think that we should lie to people?
Obviously not.
Okay, but I lied to you, so
Right, but there is a differentiation there, right? If you were to tell me, like, if I were to ask you, "How's my voice today? Am I passing?" and you said yes, and you actually don't, and like or something directly related to my transition, right? And then I found out after the fact that you were like saying shit behind my back, which you don't do. Then there would definitely be harm there.
Well,
Like that
yeah,
would be
obviously.
upsetting and hurtful, right?
But I
But
don't think the harm there would necessarily be the lie. I think it would be the, you know, transphobia.
well, I mean, and that's I don't understand why we cannot say at the same time lying is bad, but this level is not something that we're going to be bothered
Well,
with.
no, yeah, you could say that, and that's often how rules go. The rules are generally speaking never absolute. But
Yeah.
my
Why do we
whole
want absolutes though?
I don't think that we should necessarily get absolutes. My whole point, though,
Okay.
is that we should look at things more with more nuance than just whether or not it has harm. And obviously, you
Okay.
agree
Agreed.
with the
Yes.
multi-axis stuff. I'm just saying that, like, you know, we can do things that don't have harm, like direct, tangible harm, but like break, for instance, a precedent. Like a precedent should be
Okay.
that we do not lie, because if we break that precedent, it breaks a trust. And with the breaking of like trust, it can then result in the downfall of a relationship or what have you. When
Correct.
all I'm lying about is like my favorite color consistently, or lying
Mhm.
whether or not I like X, Y, and Z, right?
Well, consistency is a play there too. If you're lying to me about everything, then obviously there's a difference between,
Sure. Yeah,
like there's
that's
a difference
another.
between like, a lie of omission or a lie of exaggeration, right? Like different types of lying is a thing. So and we can have that I don't know, is it a distinction without a difference? I I can't even
Sure.
think straight.
Okay.
Um but can we not say that okay, yeah, the precedent is that we shouldn't. However,
Yep.
comma,
No, I
breaching that precedent by like the type of lie and the amount of lying should also be brought into consideration, should it not?
Well, yeah, the whole conversation was just about harm, what we consider to be
Right.
harm, because the things
Okay.
that I consider to be harm is not the same as negative utility, right? I wouldn't
Then
consider
would
breaking a
you educate me on negative utility,
It's
please?
just negative utility is a broad word for things being not what I want them to be. It's just bad
Okay.
because I'm a
Is
utilitarian.
that a personal ideation of negative utility utility? Okay.
Yeah, it's just like a moral, like we shouldn't do this because it leads to bad outcomes. That's it.
Right. Moral lot claims.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's
Okay.
just dumb shit like that. All right. I don't think we disagree, and I think at this point we're getting into the weeds. So, is there anything
Yep. I
else you
think we
wanted to
are.
say?
Do you want to talk about the school thing?
Oh, do you disagree with the school take?
Yeah, actually, I kind of do. Yeah,
Okay.
I
All
just
right.
I just dropped my kid off at state mandated school though, so
Nice meme. Nice meme.
I did
Okay.
though. Like I dropped her off at
Mm-hmm.
7:50. Anyway, I I want to ask this question.
Mm.
If my 9-year-old does
Yep.
not want to go to school,
Mm-hmm.
she genuinely doesn't, right?
Yep.
Every excuse everybody's come up with, she doesn't want to go to school.
Yep.
Is my only recourse with her violence?
Uh, no. What do you mean by school? Are you talking about online schooling, homeschooling, tutoring sessions, alternative
Everybody, I
schooling?
mean, Hans and everybody else seems to just add absolutely everything into this. So I don't know. Like, I obviously believe that there are multiple avenues here, right? Being a libertarian socialist, I'm an anti-statist. I do not agree in state-sanctioned violence against other people, right? So, like, in this case, should the cops be able to kick my door in and arrest my kid and take her from me? Let's go back to that harm
If you are
valuation, right?
not educating your kid when you could otherwise do it, or the state could do it, yes, I think
Oh,
they
well,
should.
I don't
Wait,
agree with that.
so do you think that we should be able to just have like children in our house that just never get an education?
I mean, like, indigenous people didn't have schools. We had education, though.
Well, yeah, but then, but our argument would be that like they were probably homeschooled, right?
Right? Yes, true. Yeah.
So there you go.
I
That's
mean,
a
I was
form of
homeschooled,
education.
and then I went to a career center and dropped out and got a GED because I hated school. I
Okay.
loved learning, but I hated school. So yeah.
Yeah, I hate school too, and I really like learning. But like we could do the same thing. There's homeschooling, there's online schooling, there's alternative like schooling. Like I went to a school, like an alternative form of schooling where it was pretty much online schooling, but
Mm.
I went to a fucking building was just I walked in, sat on a computer, and for like fucking 6 hours a day, and there would be like just like a teacher that would walk around and just help you if you needed it. It was very productive for me. Instead of like doing a system where they like try and teach me in a traditional method. That's what I did. I did it like once a week. And other than that, I didn't go to school. Right? So like that's what I did, but that's another form of education. I got educated.
Yeah.
So
we have multiple avenues to educate children,
and if
and we should utilize them all.
Right, and if parents are not doing any of those avenues, do you believe that they should have their kids taken away from them and educated properly?
Well, in that situation, if we say the hypothetical is the child is at home and the parent is doing absolutely nothing with the child, then the parent is harming the child. Then somebody should do something, right? That's remember, I'm trying to remain consistent with my own logic. If you're actively causing harm to your child, then fine. That's when I'm okay with somebody interfering. But I mean, I've had my own family called CPS on me when I came out as trans, right? So like, should they be able to do that? Should they be able to send law enforcement to my house?
Wait, what does that have to do with mandatory schooling?
Well, people talking about the state intervening. So like if I deem somebody to be X, Y, and Z, then I should call CPS and the police and they should be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Wait, do you
Even
think that
though
CPS
is abused quite often, and law enforcement have routinely, we have video, hundreds of hours of video footage of cops doing things like slamming 16-year-old black girls into the concrete and knocking them out. Like, is this what we want? We want law enforcement to beat the shit out of kids? Is that what we want? To get them into school?
Which position are we at? Like, I'm confused.
We're at the position of, as long as you're taking care of your child and you're not harming them, and
right.
like,
so
what's the
I'm sorry, because just a second ago you were saying should kids be arrested for being trans? The answer is no.
That's not what I said. It's not what I said. No, that you didn't hear me correctly. What I said was my family called Child Protective Services on me when I came out to them as trans.
And then you asked me
if they thought that I was harming my child. By just being trans.
And then you asked if we could call CPS on that.
Yeah. Seeing as how people seem to have these types of evaluations here.
So what does that have to do with mandatory schooling?
Okay, never mind. It's people. Never mind.
I know. Is your argument supposed to be whether or not we can call CPS at all? Like, I don't agree with that specific issuance of CPS. Obviously,
good. I mean, I
did you think I was going to disagree with that? Like, oh yeah, go parents. Like,
I mean, I don't know. I would have hoped not. I mean, maybe I thought you would. Yeah.
That's a weird thing to bring up, but okay. Like, in the context of like, I mean, I guess if you just wanted to share it, that's fine. But like, obviously, I'm not gonna disagree with that. I was
trying to actually have some context for why I think the way that I think, which is, if CPS can be used as a tool and a bludgeon abusively, then I don't like that agency exists without any oversight whatsoever. This is that whole, should the state be able to do X, Y, and Z? Well, yeah, who watches the watcher argument, right? So if we say the state can do X, Y, and Z, then who gets to step in if the state oversteps?
The judicial branch of the government?
The judicial system that's also part of the state that routinely allows police officers who overstep and beat the shit out of kids to continue being cops.
Wait, just to be clear, they're in like separate arms of the.
That's true. They are, but we have seen the judicial system not prosecute law enforcement officers quite regularly.
That's true. So
is your overstep and murder people, for example.
So is your argument that like unless it's like perfect, we can't use it?
My argument is I would dream and wish for a better system that we haven't found yet, and I don't have any answers for. So
Okay, but in the meantime, then should we not like take advantage of the systems that we have right now?
Okay, well, you just got done talking about like negative utility. We just got done talking about negative utility and harm. If we could prove to you that CPS, for example, is a state-sponsored entity that would be doing these things to get kids into school, was an entity that was a net negative, was a harm as an agency, would you want that agency to be completely dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up in order to take advantage
So hold on.
of it?
So you had multiple questions there. One, if you could prove to me, you had multiple things that I want like different answers to. If you could prove to me that CPS is a net negative, of course I would ask for a reformation if reformation is possible. And if reformation isn't possible, then ground up restructuring would probably be necessary. But CPS as a concept is necessary.
Okay.
Often, or sorry, no, maybe I shouldn't use the word often, but there's a lot of really fucking shit parents that need their kids taken away from them because they're fucking dog shit. Absolute dog
Okay.
shit at being parents. So yes, CPS is 100% necessary. Even right
Okay.
now, I would say so. I've
No.
seen evidence of CPS doing bad things, but more
Mhm.
often than not, it seems like CPS is a good thing because without it, we just have kids like unironically getting the shit beat out of them every day with no recourse whatsoever.
Okay. I mean, that's something that I agree with.
Okay, so then, like, how does this get over to the mandatory schooling?
Okay, because obviously my communication skills are garbage. I can't get there from here like I wanted to. So let's move on to something else then. Um, I do not like the idea of the state being able to the state having that monopoly of violence, right? I don't like the idea of it. I don't like that people are insinuating that my only course of action as a parent to get my child education is to threaten them with bodily harm. You'll do this or else.
You
People are
don't
going to
have
come
to
and
do that.
arrest you.
You could. Well, oh, I see. By the state.
Yes.
Okay, so you don't. It doesn't have to be like an immediate arrest. It could be a fine.
Okay. And if I'm a broke disabled person, like I am,
Right, right,
struggling
right. So
financially,
yeah, you're talking about what if you can't pay? Of course, all laws are upheld by violence ultimately. If that's what you're
that's
asking.
true. Yeah, as we've seen quite routinely. So but then what's when do we start asking different questions, right? So if we say there is a fine, right?
Oh,
When do we start asking the question, okay, the parent is currently unemployed and disabled and can't pay the fine, but we have sent someone to the house and the child is at least being fed and clothed and not physically abused or emotionally abused or mistreated. So now what do we do? Do we then still take the child from the parent?
yeah, put them in boarding school,
Okay. So
or
the reason I have
get
issues with
somebody to, or get some like an Uber program to get them to school. Yeah, something like that.
all
Yeah.
right. Have you heard, okay, I'm gonna try and draw a line here, and again, no one's gonna understand this because of like where I come up as an indigenous individual. Have you heard of the National Study of American Indian Education?
The study? No.
No. Okay. So there was part of the Kennedy Report in 1969, right? And we had an instance of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act of 1975, as well as the Indian Child Welfare Act passed in 1978, which gave Native American parents the legal right to refuse their children's placement in a school, specifically boarding schools, which were all operated by the Bureau of Indian Affairs in 1969. There were 226 of them in 17 states, with all 50,000 students in these boarding schools. And they found routinely that abuse at these boarding schools was through the roof.
Okay, so
These
then what you
children
would
were
just
being
argue
abused.
for is just add more investigations of these schools and misconduct in these schools. That's not an argument against mandatory education. That's an argument against shitty schools.
Right. So, what?
That's an argument against shitty schools. That's not an argument against mandatory education.
Okay. So,
So what I could say is any school that any individual fucking I don't know goddamn state officer is licensed or allowed to be able to send a kid to must have like 300 billion people oversight with Big Brother style every single fucking move that these teachers make sure they're not abusing a kid, and then you have no argument, right? But and then obviously I can backpedal down onto like something more reasonable, right? I can make whatever caveats you want me to. Either way, that kid's going to school.
all right. Well, and we don't take severe learning disabilities or physical disabilities into
No,
account.
you can. You can special
Okay.
education inside of some of these places. Why not?
Okay. All right. Fine.
So that's the argument. Do you disagree with it then that schools should be allowed to be mandatory?
I don't like the idea of the institution of schooling as it exists in the United States of America, and I don't like the idea that schooling is mandatory. I still maintain that position. However, mandatory education, on the other hand, I'm completely fine with.
Okay, so that's how many people do you think talk about mandatory schooling? What they mean is like you have to go to a physical
I don't care how
building.
many people talk about it that way. I don't
Okay.
fucking care. This is the way that I talk about it, and if it's not good enough, then fine. I don't fucking care. Don't
Okay.
care. You
All
can
right.
clip it and ship it. Don't fucking care. That's the way
Okay,
I talk about
so
it.
generally speaking, every single person that talks about mandatory schooling is talking about mandatory education. So do you have an
All
issue with
right.
mandatory education?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's what all the entire discourse has been about.
Okay, cool. Let's see who cancels me now. All right, cool. Then I think we've come to an agreement then, yes?
Okay, yep.
Cool. See you, Riley.
Yep, bye.